Good day, everyone, and welcome to another beautiful day here on Cape Cod, the South Shore, and the islands. What a gorgeous day it is outside. It's going to get warm, though. I'll warn you of that right up front. Before we get into a detailed explanation of today's weather, I'll let you know that this is your volunteer reader, Doug Fagan, coming to you today, as always, from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger here in sunny and mild Mashpee, Massachusetts. Now, let's go take a look at the weather is as contained in today's Tuesday, the June 25th edition of the Cape Cod Times, from which I'll be reading for you today. So the weather today, we're going to have a high, get ready folks, 84 degrees, which is warm for us here on the Cape, mostly sunny and a bit less humid than yesterday. Tonight we're going to have an overnight low of only 68 degrees, with a full moon hidden partially by some clouds. Now, looking at Wednesday through Saturday, we're going to have temperatures in the low 80s to the high 70s. All looks pretty good. All partly sunny. Tomorrow, Wednesday, 81 degrees will be your high, with a low overnight of 69. It's going to be mostly cloudy, breezy, as it's been 4 out of the last 5 days here on the Cape. Mostly cloudy, breezy, and humid, so the humidity does return for the remainder of the next 3 days. So Thursday and Friday, 80 degrees will be your high Thursday. Friday will be a high of 74. It's going to be more pleasant on Friday and less humid. All through the week, this week, and into Saturday, where we're going to have a high of 78 degrees and mostly sunny, it's going to be sunshine all week. So if you've got tasks or errands to do or you want to hit the beach, perfect week to do that. Sun all this week. Now, again, as I said, you're going to have some humidity tomorrow through Thursday. Now, let's take a look at temperatures on the other side of the canal and then move on to the Cape. Buzzards Bay and Wareham. Buzzards Bay is going to have a high of 86. Wareham's going to get up to 90 degrees today. All right, let's cross the bridge over onto the Cape. We have highs of 85 degrees in Barnstable, Sandwich, Mashpee, Falmouth, and down into Woods Hole today. Hyannis, Dennis, and Chatham are going to be 84. Brewster's 85. Eastham is 84. Going out north to Truro, 83 degrees as a high. And at Race Point in Provincetown, we're going to have a high of 83 degrees. And again, sunny and nice all throughout the Cape. Thinking of going in the ocean today? Well, Cape Cod Bay water temperature is going to be 61 degrees, still a little cool. Wave heights modest at 1 to 3 feet. Wind direction northeast 6 to 12 knots. All right, let's take a look at the islands and see what's happening out there. At Martha's Vineyard out on Oak Bluffs, you're going to have a high of 83 degrees today, sunny and clear. Edgartown's going to be 82 as a high today. All right, let's swim on out to Nantucket. At Secaucet, a high of 78 degrees. Nantucket Village, 84 degrees. So, again, out on the islands, lovely and sunny. How about swimming in Nantucket Sound? Water temperatures up to 72 degrees. Not bad. Wave heights 2 to 4 feet. Wind direction 8 to 16 knots westerly. All right. There you have it, friends, a look at the weather, not only for today, but throughout the rest of the week. And I remind you, Wednesday through Friday, you're going to have some humidity. So if you want to get out and about in less humid temperatures and conditions, do it today or Saturday. Otherwise, enjoy a great, great week here on the Cape and the South Shore and the islands. And June, slow down. We love this weather. Keep it coming. All right, friends, let's move on to the Tuesday, June 25th edition of the Cape Cod Times, moving to page 1 and see what articles of local and regional interest we find there. Well, here on page 1, we have an overflight picture of Mayflower Beach in Dennis, taken from yesterday as the beachgoers seek relief from the heat. Beach is pretty much filled. And this first article talks about Dennis beaches, the 3 of them, and July 4th restrictions which are planned for those beaches. July 4th, whether it seems so or not, is just around the corner. So here's the article. It's written by Kaylee Walker of the Cape Cod Times Network. Here's the article, friends. 4th of July restrictions are planned for 3 Dennis beaches, Town Administrator Elizabeth Sullivan and Police Chief John Brady said in a statement yesterday. Restrictions are for Mayflower Beach, Chapin Memorial Beach, and Bayview Beach only for July 4th. Dennis is home to some of the best beaches on Cape Cod, including Mayflower Beach. Our goal with these measures is to make sure that beachgoers can enjoy Dennis beaches this July 4th holiday safely without worrying about out-of-control crowds, violence, and other dangerous behavior, so said Chief Brady in a statement yesterday. The restrictions include no daily parking passes being issued or accepted, a parking ban at the neighborhoods and businesses adjacent to the beach, and no alcohol consumption, drug use, overly loud music, or otherwise unsafe behavior. These restrictions are a result of increasingly large and chaotic crowds over past years, said the police. Since 2019, there's been a 100% increase in beach-related emergency service calls on the holiday. Last year, that was 459 calls. Dennis police made 13 arrests last year, including assault and underage liquor possession, and crowds also left significant trash behind. So what are the restrictions planned? Anyone found drinking alcohol will be issued a citation, receive a $50 fine, and have their alcohol confiscated. Vehicles found in violation of the parking ban will be towed. There will be a checkpoint at the intersection of New Boston Road and Beach Street. So those with proper parking stickers, residents, and their visitors can get to the beach. Additional checkpoints will be at the parking lot entrances. The checkpoint is just over a mile from Mayflower Beach and over 2 miles from Chapin Memorial Beach. Dennis Police will bring in additional resources and officers, and they will be out in full numbers, according to the statement from Chief Brady. So, friends, it seems like Dennis and the community there and the police department and the managerial services for the town are fed up with some of the bad behavior over the past years, and they are really cracking down. So, notice being given. Take warning, take heed, do the right thing, and enjoy the Dennis beaches. Okay, here's another article on page 1, the headline being, Search for Missing Man with Provincetown Ties Ends in Tragedy. This article is by Heather McCarran of the Times staff, and here it is. A 69-year-old Plymouth man with ties to Provincetown, and who had been the subject of an intense 4-day search, was found dead outdoors Saturday afternoon in Plymouth, authorities in that community did announce. Rodney Riviello, father of Provincetown Assistant Town Manager Dan Riviello, was last seen on Tuesday, June 18th, near Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital at 275 Sandwich Street in Plymouth. Plymouth Chief of Police Dana Flynn and Fire Chief Neil Foley made the announcement in a brief press release about his death. The members of the Plymouth Police Department and Plymouth Fire Department offer their condolences to Mr. Riviello's family and loved ones, the release reads. The two chiefs thanked those who helped search for Mr. Riviello. The chief said information about the case will be updated in the coming days. They also asked that the family wishes for privacy be respected. On Friday afternoon, Dan Riviello said the family posted a $5,000 reward for information leading to his father's safe return. It had been theorized that he could have tried to make his way to Provincetown, where his son lives, or to the home of his daughter in Boxborough, or possibly to former homes in Clyde, New York, and Brooklyn, New York. He's a very simple man. He likes to sit in his chair and watch his TV shows, Dan Riviello said in an interview. In a Facebook post last Friday afternoon, Provincetown town manager, Alex Morse, had posted a missing persons poster alerting the community to the absence of Mr. Riviello. The poster was also shared on the Plymouth Police Department's Facebook page last Friday. So, mysterious disappearance after a hospital visit. In an interview last Friday, Dan Riviello said the last time his father was seen around was around 11 a.m. on Tuesday as he was leaving the hospital. The family believes he went out for his usual morning walk around 7 in the morning that day. We don't know exactly what happened to get him to the hospital, Dan Riviello said, though there was a report his father had fallen on the sidewalk and an ambulance had been called, picked him up, and brought him to the hospital about 6 miles from his home in Manomet. He was seen in the emergency room and then was discharged. He did not have a wallet or any identification with him. They were working to get him a ride with a cab or a lift, but he walked off, Dan Riviello said. Rodney Riviello did not have any diagnosed dementia, but his son said he's developed memory issues over the last couple of years, and he doesn't have a critical thinking problem or problem-solving skills. If somebody was just talking to him, they would think he was just a nice old man, Dan Riviello said. When you're around him for a period of time, you realize he'll tell you the same story, almost word for word, multiple times in a single day. So there was an intensive police response. Authorities launched an extensive effort to locate Rodney Riviello, his son said. Plymouth police were joined by state police and a team deployed by the Metropolitan Law Enforcement Council, which is a consortium of more than 46 local police and sheriff's departments in the South Metropolitan Boston area. Response included use of drones with thermal cameras, police personnel on foot and on bikes, and police in cruisers, in addition to efforts by the Plymouth Harbor Master. Volunteers had been on the search as well. Volunteers made flyers and were giving them to people going into the city of Boston for the Celtics parade, Dan Riviello said Friday. We have family in New York going to three-way stops and putting up posters and talking to people. He said the failure of the massive search throughout Plymouth to locate his dad left the family very mystified. The response was incredible. We are so flabbergasted and confused and cannot believe that there's been no sign of him since Tuesday with all of the cameras that are around in the world today, on people's houses, on businesses, and in cars, said Riviello, before his father's body was found. The fact that he has seemingly disappeared without a trace, I really can't wrap my head around that. He said the number of people who've been looking for his dad that he can't imagine he's anywhere in the Plymouth area still, yet he was found there dead. We know that many of you have put in countless hours searching for Mr. Riviello and that we could not be more thankful, said the Plymouth Department of Police in a post last Friday. Okay, there you have it. The search for Mr. Riviello ended in tragedy. Rodney Riviello was found dead in Plymouth. All right, let's move on, friends. Although we on the Cape have been moderately affected by some of the heat wave that is persistent across the country and other weather conditions, it really hasn't been all that bad here. But this next article from page 1 does describe some of the issues facing the people in the country today. And it says here, heat wave in central U.S. and flooding persists. This is an article from the USA Today network, and here it is. Heat advisory warnings of potential record-breaking temperatures were set to activate Monday afternoon for most of the central U.S. as Iowa and other parts of the Great Lakes Plains region face more rain after a days-long deluge led to devastating flooding. Tens of millions of people from South Dakota to Missouri, Illinois to eastern Texas, and Florida's Atlantic coast faced heat indices, temperatures when humidity is taken into account, in the high 90s Fahrenheit and into triple digits according to the National Weather Service. Lows were expected to mostly remain in the mid to upper 70s, which would bring little relief from the heat overnight, the Weather Service said. Meanwhile, east central South Carolina faced a heat index of 110 degrees, and a stretch of Southern California was forecasted to bake under temperatures of 90 to 100 degrees on Monday. That's yesterday. The arrival of this more intense heat early in the summer season leads to a higher level of heat-related stress, especially for those outdoors and without reliable air conditioning available, according to the National Weather Service. The heat will bear down on the central U.S. before concentrating mostly on the south by the latter half of the week, so said the Weather Service. So there was devastating flooding in the plains areas. Across the northern and central plains, communities reeling from the record-breaking floods over the weekend remained under threat of rising rivers as floodwaters headed downstream, and forecasts were for the projection of more rain. Scattered, fast-moving showers were slated to impact the region early this week before more organized thunderstorms bring heavy rain by Thursday, according again to the National Weather Service. Last week, parts of the region were hit with a month's worth of rain. Yes, that's a month's worth of rain in a span of 48 hours. Sioux Falls, South Dakota, received 6.3 inches of rain from Thursday to Saturday, with 10.8 inches of rain so far in June, according to AccuWeather. The worst impacts, however, were felt in northwest Iowa. Between Friday and Sunday of last week, some areas of the state where the ground was already saturated recorded up to 15 inches of rain. That's in 3 days, a deluge that damaged public infrastructure and triggered hundreds of evacuations and rescues. At least 16 flood gauges recorded historic river levels. At least 250 people were rescued over the weekend, while 1,900 properties were impacted and hundreds were destroyed, so said Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds at a news conference on Sunday. While we're still very early in the response, the projected damage is staggering, said Governor Reynolds. Officials reported at least 10 city water systems and 21 wastewater systems have been disrupted, leaving many residents without drinkable water. Well over 1,000 Iowans took to shelters over the weekend. John Benson, who is Iowa's Director of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, warned that as the water recedes, much of it will flow into larger waterways, including the Missouri, Big Sioux, South Fork, and Mississippi rivers, which are expected to reach major flooding stages in the coming days. So there you have it, though we haven't here on the Cape felt the extremes in weather. Those in the Midwest, Southwest, and even as far west as California certainly have had devastation wreak havoc upon them. All right, friends, let's move on to page 3, the Cape and Islands page. Here's a brief article about the Bourne Bridge and a fire that happened there. It says, as a headline, Bourne Bridge reopens after car fire closed lanes in both directions. This by Kaylee Walker of the Cape Cod Times. The Bourne Bridge reopened Monday after a vehicle caught fire in the late morning and shut down traffic lanes for about half an hour, according to the Bourne Police Department. Traffic on the bridge was closed in both directions due to the fire. State Police and the Bourne Fire Department were handling the incident, with the Bourne Police Department assisting. Bourne Deputy Fire Chief Joe Carrera said the fire started in the engine compartment and a driving wind atop the bridge led to the entire vehicle catching fire rapidly. Carrera said there were no injuries. If it had been even 100 yards up the bridge, access for us getting there would have been hampered, and again, you'd have exposure of these other vehicles that, would have made it worse, Carrera said. Mutual aid from Sandwich and Wareham assisted the fire department. Troopers from the State Police Bourne Barracks responded at approximately 9:50 a.m., according to a statement from Trooper Luis Blanco in the Massachusetts State Police Office of Media Relations. The bridge was cleared and reopened approximately an hour later at 10:20 a.m., and the cause of the fire in that engine of the car was not disclosed. All right, moving on. Well, page 3 is cluttered with various pictures and mostly advertisements, but there is one article here on page 3, and it says police say boulder and a wall in Mashpee sprayed with anti-Muslim sentiments. By Rachel Devaney is this article of the Times Network with, of course, a dateline of Mashpee. Here's the article. Mashpee Police and the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office are investigating a rash of Islamophobic vandalism that appeared in 2 areas in Mashpee. On June 12th at 7:38 a.m., the Mashpee Police Department responded to reported vandalism along the intersection of Cotuit Road and Windsor Way. The anti-Muslim statement was spray-painted on a 3-foot retaining wall, said Police Chief Scott Carline in a statement to the Times. While police were investigating the vandalism on Cotuit Road, more graffiti was reported at the intersection of Emmy Oakley Mills Way and Route 130. The anti-Muslim words were spray-painted across a boulder. The black spray paint on the stone covered the saying, One Okie, that's WUN-OH-KEE, Good Earth, Wanoki Good Earth, which had been previously embossed on the boulder surface. So the investigation is ongoing. Mashpee Police Department detectives and the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office criminal investigators went to the scene of both incidents, said Mashpee Chief Carline. A search with police tracking dogs was also attempted, but due to the length of time from the discovery and the dissipation of the target odor, canine techniques were ineffective, said the chief. This is a very active and ongoing investigation, and it would be inappropriate for me to comment further at this time until the investigation has been completed, said Chief Carline. Director of Communications for the Sheriff's Office, Casey Myers, said the Sheriff's Office can't comment due to the incident being an ongoing investigation as well. So were there other incidents on Cape Cod? Well, in March, a building in Mashpee occupied by the Wampanoag Language Reclamation Project, the late Native Land Conservancy, and Wildfire Brick Oven Pizza, was defaced by graffiti, including swastika-type symbols, according to a Mashpee Police Department press release. No damage appeared on the portion of the building where the pizza restaurant is located. The vandalism could be seen from Route 130. It was the second time the building had been targeted with graffiti. Reclamation Project founder Jesse Little Doe Beard said to the Times. In 2023, artist Craig Florence returned to his Hyannis studio after taking a short lunch break to find a racial slur spray-painted several times on a brick wall 50 feet away. In that same year of 2023, graffiti with racial slurs was found in the men's and boys' locker rooms at the YMCA in West Barnstable, according to YMCA President and CEO Stacy Pugh. All right. That goes back a couple of weeks in terms of when the incident occurred, but there you have it, some vandalism with graffiti sprayed Islamophobic sayings or statements, whatever they were, on a boulder and a short wall in Mashpee. All right, friends, let's move on to other areas of the paper. Let's take a look now at the lottery for Powerball, Mega Millions, and others that were drawn, some locally, yesterday. To give you an update on the jackpots, the Mega Millions jackpot and the Powerball jackpots are very similar right now. Mega Millions, which will be drawn this evening at 11 o'clock, has a jackpot at this point of $97 million. The Powerball drawing, which will be held tomorrow, is at a jackpot of $95 million. So very close. And again, those tickets are $2 wherever you can get them for each drawing. Let's take a look now at the numbers game for those games that were drawn yesterday on June 24th, Monday. In the midday drawing, here are those numbers. 7744. Midday number 7744. In the evening numbers game drawing, those numbers were 0461. Evening drawing 0461 for the numbers game. And moving to mass cash, also drawn yesterday, Monday, June 24th, were these numbers: 3, 26, 28, 30, and 35. 3, 26, 28, 30, and 35 for the mass cash drawing. Now, for Powerball, the big ones coming up, Powerball and Mega Millions, nobody won, of course, but yesterday, Monday, June 24th, Powerball drawing were these numbers: 5, 6, 36, 53, and 69, with a Powerball of 8. 5, 6, 36, 53, 69, Powerball 8 for yesterday's Powerball drawing. For last Friday's Mega Millions, June 21st ticket, here are those numbers: 3, 18, 27, 40, 44, and a Mega Ball of 19. Mega Millions Friday: 3, 18, 27, 40, 44, and a Mega Ball of 19. Mega Bucks yesterday drawing as well, June 24th. Here are those 6 numbers: 14, 15, 16, right in a row: 14, 15, 16, 22, 28, 44. Again, Megabucks 14, 15, 16, 22, 28, 44. Lucky for Life drawn yesterday as well. Big day yesterday for the lottery. Here are those numbers for Lucky for Life: 20, 26, 27, 29, 33, with a Lucky for Life ball of 14. So here again, 20, 26, 27, 29, 33, and a Lucky for Life ball of 14 in the Lucky for Life drawing yesterday. All right, there you have it, a review of the most recent lottery and the upcoming jackpots for both Mega Millions and Powerball. And as I always say to you, and to myself as well, for those of you who play, good luck, players. Okay, friends, as we come upon the halfway point of today's broadcast, let's revert now to the various obituaries, and we do have a couple today. The first is that of Ruth Alden Pierce, Pierce, with a date line of Cotuit. Ruth Alden Pierce, age 93, of Cotuit, passed away on Friday, June 21st, at the Royal of Cotuit Nursing Home after a short stay. She was the daughter of the late Victor and Edith Ryder of Harwich, Massachusetts, and a descendant of John Alden. Ruth was born at Brockton Hospital on February 1 in 1931. Her parents moved to the Cape, and she graduated from Harwich High School in 1949. She started her 35-year career as a telephone operator in Harwich and eventually moved to the Hyannis office. She belonged to the Telephone Pioneers of America and the Eastern Star. She also worked in her father's business, Victor S. Ryder's Auction Gallery. She loved antiquing and owned a small antique shop called Summers New and Summers Old in Harwich. She and her best friend, Louise Patrick of Cumberquid, enjoyed traveling the Cape in search of treasures that they could eventually sell in her shop. Ruth married Robert Williams and had one son, Stephen Williams. They resided in France and then decided to return to the Cape. Ruth married Gary Pierce and had another son, David A. Pierce of Cotuit. Ruth and Gary wintered in Florida for 15 years until they heard about the arrival of their first grandchild. And all of a sudden, they were done with Florida, sold their home, and became dedicated grandparents to Mackenzie Pierce and Griffin Pierce. She became known as Mimi to family and friends. She enjoyed knitting, sewing, and crocheting, and was known for her wonderful sense of humor and family values. A graveside service will be held at Mosswood Cemetery in Cotuit on Thursday of this week, June 27th, starting at 10 a.m. In lieu of flowers, memorial donations may be made to the VNA of Cape Cod, which is on Route 134 in South Dennis or to any charity of one's choice. That is the obituary of Ruth Alden Pierce, Pierce, of Cotuit. Our next obituary today is that of Peter Doyle, Doyle, of Osterville. Here it is. Peter Thomas Doyle, 75, passed away on Thursday, June 13th, at home in Osterville from the debilitating effects of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. For several decades, he was the award-winning supervisor of the town of Barnstable Water Pollution Control Division. He was also the vice chair and past chair of the town's Infrastructure and Energy Committee. In addition, he was for many years a volunteer for the Barnstable Land Trust. His work career also included many years in the family hardware business, Doyle Hardware of Utica and Lyons Falls, New York. He was raised and graduated from high school in Clinton, New York, and received a B.A. in American Studies from Merrimack College in North Andover, Massachusetts. He was a man of many talents, a gifted sailor and tennis player, and a guitar player and a beekeeper. He pursued a deep interest in history and world affairs. He had a global passion for gardening and pollinators, and worked diligently in local and global environmental protection, and devoted countless hours to the care of his family's home in New York's Adirondack Mountains. There will be a gathering of Peter's family and friends and a celebration of his life on Friday, June 28th. That's this Friday, with guests asked to arrive after 3 p.m. at Cape Cod Academy, which is at 50 Osterville, West Barnstable Road in Osterville. Remembrances will be offered at 3:30. A further family memorial gathering is expected to be held in the Adirondacks in July or August. Donations in Peter's memory may be made to the Natural Resources Defense Council, that's NRDC, the Nature Conservancy, TNC, the Barnstable Land Trust, or the Falcons USA in support of Haiti. All right, that is the obituary of Mr. Peter Doyle of Osterville. All right, friends, we've used up most of our local or regional news. Now we'll move on to look at some of the things that are happening nationally. This first article says the FBI is offering a reward for information on the deadly New Mexico fires. Here's the article. It's Dateline, El Paso, Texas. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $10,000 to anyone who can provide information leading to the arrests and conviction of the person or persons responsible for starting the New Mexico wildfires, which have been devastating. The FBI announcement of the reward on Saturday is the first time law enforcement officials have said a person or group of people could be responsible for starting the deadly fires. 2 people have died to date in those fires. The South Fork Fire and the Salt Fire started June 17th near Ruidoso, New Mexico. The fires have destroyed about 1,400 structures and displaced more than 8,000 people. The FBI is assisting our local, state, federal, and tribal partners in the ongoing investigation of the fires near Ruidoso, said FBI officials. We're asking for the public's assistance in identifying the cause of these fires. Those fires have scorched more than 25,000 acres. As of Sunday morning, the South Fork Fire had burned 17,551 acres, and the Salt Fire had scorched another 7,775 acres, according to a news release from the incident management team. The South Fork Fire was 31% contained, and the Salt Fire was only 7% contained. More than 1,100 personnel were fighting both fires along the Mescalero Apache Reservation, the village of Ruidoso, and the city of Ruidoso Downs. The South Fork and Salt fires saw additional precipitation on Saturday, making it difficult for crews to access some areas due to unsafe conditions. The fires are considered long-duration events, as weather changes and fire activity would increase in unburned pockets of fuel, including stumps and downed trees. As these fuels reignite, smoke may be visible, said the release. So there you have it. The devastating fire still a long way from being under control in the area near Ruidoso, New Mexico, and the FBI offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest of any person or persons who may have been involved in starting those fires. All right, friends, we're going to move now into the world of sport for a few moments. And this first article is kind of negative, but it could be. It says the 2028 Olympics target track for prime time. Oh, I thought of something else, so maybe completely off. So anyhow, it has a dateline of Eugene, Oregon. Here it is. Max Siegel, the CEO of USA Track and Field, and Casey Wasserman, the LA 28 chairman, are enjoying the track and field trials this weekend while imagining an Olympics in 4 years that rewrites the script. Instead of kicking off the Los Angeles Games with swimming, track and field will go first, and swimming will go at the end of the 28 Olympics, flipping the marquee events of the Summer Olympics as a logistical decision. The plan is for the 2028 opening ceremony to take place in SoFi Stadium, where the Rams play their NFL home games, before converting to the 70,000-seat structure into a temporary swimming facility that holds 38,000. Track and field will take place at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, home of Southern Cal football. It will be the third time the stadium has hosted an Olympic track and field event, and the first for the Games. Athletics is our prime-time event, Wasserman said. We're starting it off with a bang. There are still plenty of details to be worked out, including a marathon course and a host for the 2028 trials. Wasserman said it's unlikely the Coliseum would be ready for trials because the temporary track is the most expensive and complicated thing we have to build. The Coliseum hasn't had a permanent track since a 6.7 earthquake rocked the city in 1994. Athletes have complained for years about the expense and difficulty of getting to Eugene, Oregon, which is the city that has hosted track and field trials 8 times, including this year. But the fan base at Tracktown USA in Eugene is unmatched, and Siegel knows the importance of athletes performing in a packed stadium. Siegel said the USA Track and Field will open the bidding process as usual and emphasized that one of its priorities is to make sure we move the sport around the country to generate more fan interest. He's not worried about L.A. being unable to host the trials because the city will get share of running, jumping, and throwing from July 14th through the 30th in the year 2028. The world is coming to L.A. for Olympics, and track and field is going to be number one, Siegel said. The opportunity to take the trials event, to other places is spectacular. It's also unlikely the city would be ready to host some sort of other marquee event, such as the U.S. ATF Nationals, or perhaps the Coliseum in 2027 because of the scheduling conflicts, namely USC football. The good news about LA 28 is all our venues are in place, Wasserman said. The flip side is that they happen to be used a lot. Siegel and Wasserman know track and field is a must-see viewing like it used to be for most of America. But they're determined to improve that, motivated in part by wanting to help athletes, many of whom remain unsponsored, little known, and underpaid, despite being some of the best in the world in their particular events. They thrive financially. The greatest financial benefit for American athletes will come, they said, if 2028 is successful. All right. Didn't know that was going to be about the Olympics 4 years removed from this coming Olympics in Paris, but there you have it in that article, as L.A. has already begun preparations. Now, for those of you interested in the Red Sox and in baseball standings, let's take a look at those. In the American League, the Eastern Division, the hated, at least by fans in New England, the hated New York Yankees lead the Eastern Division of Major League Baseball with a record of 52 wins, 28 losses, and a winning percentage of .65, almost 2 out of 3, and they lead the league by 1 1/2 games over the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore rests in second place, followed by Boston with a record of 42 wins, 36 losses, and Boston is 9 games behind. Doesn't look very good at that point. Tampa Bay is 13 behind, and Toronto brings up the rear of the East Division, 15 and one-half games behind the Yankees. In the Central Division, the mighty and former Cleveland Indians, now known as the Guardians, are in first place with a hefty 7.5 lead over the Minnesota Twins. Cleveland has a record of 49 wins, 26 losses, and a winning percentage of .653. Minnesota in second place is followed by Kansas City at 9 behind. Detroit is at 14 behind, and the lowly Chicago White Sox are 30 games at this point behind league-leading Cleveland. In the Western Division, Seattle leads there with a record of 45 and 35, followed by Houston, which is 6 games behind the Seattle Mariners. Texas follows Houston in third place, 6 games behind. The Angels are 6.5 games behind, and Oakland brings up the rear at 16 games behind. So there you have the league leaders, the Yankees in the East, Cleveland in the Central, and Seattle in the West in the American League standings. All right, now let's move to hockey. And an exciting game it was last night in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Series and playoffs held in Sunrise, Florida, where the Florida Panthers defeated the Edmonton Oilers 2-1. And here's an article about that. Paul Maurice, coach of the Panthers, knew these Florida Panthers were different the moment he hung up the phone. 2 years ago, general manager Bill Zito called Maurice, then 6 months into something of a sabbatical offer after stepping down from coaching the Winnipeg Jets, about taking over behind the bench in Florida. After Maurice accepted, he called each of the players, and he had a sense that his new group was very special. In his first season, he led the Florida Panthers to the Stanley Cup Finals, but his worn-down, bagged-up roster lost to the Vegas Golden Knights in 5 games. In his second season, the Panthers became the first team since the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2009 to return to the finals after losing the previous year. This time, last night in Sunrise, Florida, the Panthers won the Stanley Cup 2-1. Next, an article again on the national scope, reflecting specifically on the state of Louisiana. You may have heard about this being in the news, where they're trying to impose the banner, so to speak, or a poster-type effect of the 10 Commandments being required in all public schools that have national or state funding. Here's the article. It says, Louisiana sued over new commandments laws. This comes from the Reuters News Service. Here's the article. Louisiana was sued on Monday over a new law requiring the display of the 10 Commandments in all public school classrooms in the state. The complaint said displaying the 10 Commandments violates the First Amendments of the U.S. Constitution and simply cannot be reconciled with the fundamental religious freedom principles that animated the founding of our nation. 9 families, including several clergy with children in public schools, filed the lawsuit in the Baton Rouge, Louisiana federal court, according to seeking an injunction against the law. Louisiana became the only state requiring displays of the 10 Commandments when Governor Jeff Landry, a Republican, signed the law on June 19. The law is also part of a broader push by conservative groups to make expressions of faith a more prominent part of society. Some hope that such laws, when challenged in court, could eventually receive a friendly welcome at the U.S. Supreme Court, which has a 6-3 conservative majority. That court in 1980 declared unconstitutional a Kentucky law requiring the display of the 10 Commandments in public schools. But in 2022, the court sided with a high school football coach in Washington State who said he had a constitutional right to pray with his players at the 50-yard line after games. Landry's office did not immediately respond to requests for comment. That's the governor. In signing the Louisiana law, Landry said displaying the Ten Commandments would help expand faith in public schools. If you want to respect the rule of law, you've got to start from the original lawgiver, which was Moses, he said. The plaintiff said the law violates the First Amendment's prohibition against state establishment of religion. They also said the law violates the First Amendment's free exercise clause by pressuring parents and children to accept the state's favored religious message. It is our children's right to decide what views they accept, Plaintiff Darcy Roque, a minister in the Unitarian Universalist Church, whose husband is Jewish and also a plaintiff, said on a conference call with reporters yesterday. In the Christian and Jewish faith, God revealed the Ten Commandments to Hebrew prophet Moses. Louisiana's law requires an easy-to-read, poster-sized display of the Ten Commandments in all classrooms from kindergarten through public colleges. It also requires a statement that the Ten Commandments had been a prominent part of American public education for almost 3 centuries. Such a statement could suggest that the Ten Commandments have historical as well as religious value, at least as proposed by Governor Landry. There you have it. Louisiana now has been sued over their mandate that a Ten Commandments poster be posted on display in all public schools, kindergarten through college. It'll be interesting to see what evolves from that. The Supreme Court was just mentioned in that article, and this next one highlights the Supreme Court. Its headline here says, "The court's divisions likely will be on display." This is by John Crusoe and Andrew Chung of the Reuters News Network, and here's the article with the dateline of Washington, D.C. The U.S. Supreme Court, with its 6-3 conservative majority, managed to bridge its ideological divide in major rulings this month involving constitutional gun rights and access to the abortion pill that could change as the court heads into what may be the final week of its term. Decisions are due in major cases involving Donald Trump's claim of presidential immunity from prosecution, an Idaho abortion ban that makes no exception to protect the health of pregnant women, and a doctrine called, quote, Chevron deference, end quote, that has long bolstered federal regulations against legal challenges. Those cases are expected to once again expose the fault lines between the court's conservative and liberal justices. So far, the term has been less ideologically defined than the last 2 years, said Edwin Cherminsky, Dean of the University of California, Berkeley Law School. But I really think it is this week's decisions that will determine how we think of this term of the court. 2 years ago, the court's conservatives powered rulings rolling back abortion rights and widening gun rights. Last year, they rejected race-conscious admissions policies long used by colleges and universities to increase enrollment of Black and Hispanic students. Some justices have come under fresh scrutiny for their actions away from the bench, including reports that flags associated with Trump attempts to overturn his 2020 election loss flew outside Justice Samuel Alito's home in Virginia and New Jersey, and fresh revelations about Justice Clarence Thomas accepting undisclosed amounts totaling roughly $4 million from a wealthy benefactor. The American public has come to view the court through a partisan lens, with 69% of Republicans, but just 27% of Democrats viewing it favorably, according to a May Reuters Ipsos poll. The justices are expected to complete their term either this week or next, with rulings in 14 argued cases, including some of the most important ones still outstanding. Based on the proportion of cases decided by this point in a term that started in October, the court is having its second slowest term since 1946, according to Adam Feldman, a legal scholar who tracks court data on his empirical SCOTUS blog. In that span, only the 2019-2020 term that ended during an intense period of the COVID pandemic was even slower. Two cases of keen interest to Trump, the Republican candidate challenging Democrat President Joe Biden in the November 5th U.S. election, are awaiting resolution. One is his bid to avoid federal prosecution on charges relating to the former president's effort to overturn his 2020 election loss to Biden. The other involves whether to raise the legal bar for prosecutors pursuing obstruction charges against Trump supporters accused in the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack. Trump himself was hit with two obstruction-related charges in a four-court criminal indictment obtained in August 2023 by special counsel Jack Smith. The Supreme Court's decision to hear arguments over presidential immunity and then to wait until the end of its term to issue a ruling have reduced the chances of a jury deciding that criminal case before the November 5th election if the justices even allow it to proceed. In the court last month, it ruled 7-2 with four conservative justices joined by all three liberals to uphold the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's funding mechanism, a decision in a case that had exposed an existential threat to that agency. But a U.S. regulatory agency could still suffer major blows in a case still to be decided, reflecting the long-running conservative effort to weaken what they call the administrative state. One case takes aim at the legality of proceedings conducted by Securities and Exchange Commission in-house judges. Another targets Chevron deference, a key principle of administrative law for decades. Dating to a 1984 Supreme Court precedent involving the oil company Chevron, it calls on judges to defer to reasonable interpretations by federal agencies of laws deemed to be ambiguous. Also to be decided are three cases involving the power of social media companies to curb content on their platform that they deem to be objectionable. During its current term, the Supreme Court has reined in several decisions by the New Orleans-based Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, one of the most conservative federal appellate courts. The justices have overturned or thrown out 5 of the 7 Fifth Circuit rulings they have addressed so far. These included the court's unanimous June 13 ruling preserving broad access to the abortion pill mifepristone, an 8-1 ruling last Friday with 5 conservative justices joined by 3 liberals that upheld a federal law that makes it a crime for people under domestic violence restraining orders to have guns. The court is next scheduled to issue rulings tomorrow on Wednesday. As always, most of the blockbuster cases will come down in the last week, so said Mr. Cheminsky. All right, there you have it, a reflection of what's happening this week and maybe into next at the Supreme Court and major rulings yet to be offered. All right, we've had some heavy stuff so far. How about we move to something lighter in the paper today of the Tuesday, June 25th edition of the Cape Cod Times and take a look at the Carolyn Ask Carolyn column where writers write in to Carolyn Hacks with their problem or situation asking for her advice. This is titled, Shouldn't Husband Come Home Early Now That His Mom Is Okay? Here's the article. Hi, Carolyn. My husband and I both live far away from our families, though he has to travel much farther than I overnight to another country. His mom had emergency surgery a week ago, and we decided he should go for a couple of weeks to help out. This leaves me with 2 kids under 10, a full-time job, and managing the house alone while he is gone. But of course, we can all make it work so he can help his mom. 2 days in, his mom is so much better she probably won't need him by early next week. When I suggested maybe he could come home early, he said he also wanted to see friends while there, but could come home if I'm really struggling. I told him I didn't want him to put it on me since I thought the long trip was for his mom's recovery. It feels weird to me that he gets to relax while I'm handling everything here at home. But he sacrificed life in this country, his country, to be with me and mine. He rarely gets back. So should I just suck it up and not tell him how hard this is for me? We generally have very good communication, but I worry my loneliness and overwhelming concerns are getting the best of me. I'm also upset he didn't seem to get right away that it would be a big help for him to return early, at least a big help for me. So it's signed Feeling Weird. Here's Carolyn's response. Dear Feeling Weird, 1. Give him his 2 weeks guilt-free. 2. Prove to yourself you can do this and not unravel. Major payoffs in that, which I'll get to eventually. 3. Recognize that asking him to get right away what you wanted is both a mind-reading ask and a huge discounting of the value of home to him. So, those benefits, payoffs. Obviously, the one with the getaway enjoys the benefits of rest, a scenery change, fewer pressures, and a reacquaintance with self. These are so important to build into life with young children, if possible. But the one holding down the family fort also benefits. It can boost your confidence as a parent. It can teach your kids to step up, and as soon as they're old enough. What extra, even tiny jobs can they do to help you help them and your dad help his mom? It's about family buy-in and in resourcefulness, such as great things to teach your kids. Give them this experience when your husband is in charge, too. Nobody's guaranteed 2 parents. Stuff happens. Knowing you can do this, whatever this is worth the hassle you're going through right now, I swear to you. So there you have it. I guess what Carolyn's saying is buckle up and do the job until your husband gets home, and you will be a better person for it, gaining more respect from both your husband and your children. Well, friends, we are nearing the end of today's broadcast of the Tuesday, June 25th edition of the Cape Cod Times. And as we end, I thought I might offer a few quotes about July 4th. And believe it or not, July 4th is coming next week. It's coming all too fast as summer breezes by. So let me offer you a couple quotes for your thoughts about July 4th. And here's one. Sure, 4th of July is about gathering, grilling, and inevitably running out of ice. But above all, it's about celebrating America as a nation. We've rounded up some of the best patriotic quotes that will definitely leave you proud to be an American. Here's the first by Michelle Obama. The fact is, with every friendship you make and every bond of trust you establish, you are shaping the image of America projected to the rest of the world. Here's another by William Faulkner. We must be free, not because we claim freedom, but rather because we practice it. Here's one by Malcolm X. You cannot separate peace and freedom, because no one can be at peace unless he has his freedom. And last one here by Abraham Lincoln. It is, quote, I like to see a man proud of the place in which he lives. I likes to see a man live so that his place will be proud of him. End quote. All right, friends, there you have it. A look ahead to next week, 4th of July. I hope you and your families will be able to, and friends as well, get together, enjoy the day, and reflect upon your freedom and the prices necessary to maintain and practice those freedoms that we all enjoy. It has been my pleasure to read to you today from the Tuesday, June 25th edition of the Cape Cod Times, and I look forward to reading to you and for you again in the near future. Thank you for the privilege of your time. This is Doug Fagan, your volunteer reader, signing off today from the studios of the Audible Local Ledger here in Mashpee, Massachusetts, bidding you so long for now.